Well, for the first time, News Corp is producing its print and online news remotely as Australia battles the coronavirus. The Advertiser in Adelaide produced its print and online editions completely remotely last Tuesday, and Friday's Courier-Mail was produced from the spare bedrooms and kitchen tables around the state. Joining me now live is the Courier-Mail editor himself, Chris Jones. Chris, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Yeah, and joining you from said kitchen bench, Danica, good to see you.
From the said kitchen bench, you and many others across the country, in self-isolation, working from home. Can you take us through, firstly, how has that experience been for you?
Yeah, obviously it's a very different way of, of operating. You're used to just being able to wander about the office or the newsroom and, and have lots of conversations, and now we're having to do them on video calls like this one. It's been interesting. It's been we're learning the etiquette quickly in terms of the little pause that you've got to do. Muting yourself when there's multiple people on those video calls, and just the need for that constant communication that you otherwise take for granted. But it certainly had some challenges, but it's also quite a nice way to operate as well. You certainly feel close to your colleagues when you get to check out their spare bedrooms, kitchen tables and lounge rooms.
Well, you're just judging each other on cleanliness, essentially, because you can see how each other lives. Now, Chris, how do you manage to put together a newspaper from home? Take us through the task.
Yeah, so from Tuesday, we said to all our reporters, look, it's probably best if you work remotely where you can, just to try to limit the amount of people who are in that one newsroom environment. So for the reporters, we've been saying, look, it's work remotely rather than work from home. So you still have to go to your press conferences, you still, where it's safe to do so. Photographers are still operating as they normally would. It's just that we're trying to keep people out of the office. So then you go to the people who are running those guys, and we've been splitting into two teams. So we've got a team that's in the office and then a team that's outside of the office in terms of production crew, just to, again, limit the chance of exposure to the virus. And it's just about what we've been doing is just keeping our routines down pat. So we have a conference at 7:45 a.m. where we talk about the news that's happening in the morning, and we're sticking to that, just doing it instead of face-to-face as a video chat. And then we go through our other news conferences of the day, and we just overdo the communication. We've got lots of Google Hangouts set up where we're sharing all the information that we need to get the websites and the paper out, but also sharing pictures of the pets as they're wandering past our workspaces, and what snacks you're having. And I think that's the biggest learning from this week is you really need to watch your snack intake, Danica, if you're working from home. Anyone who has already tried it would find that that's a constant temptation.
I bet it would. I'm sure there's a lot of different temptations in the home and in the kitchen. Chris, from your perspective, news has obviously played such a vital part in delivering information to people, getting the messages out there. What role does news play in a pandemic like this?
Well, obviously critical. I think it's really about cutting through the stuff that you can't believe necessarily. So, we would have all experienced over the past week or two a whole lot of stuff that we've seen on our social media feeds. It turns out to just not be true. So, turning to those trusted sources, I think is really important. I think, taking time out from just that constant bombardment is also important. So getting into maybe a newspaper habit, or checking your trusted news website, not all the time, but every couple of hours, rather than take some time out from it as well, I think is really important. And look, we're finding that there's a flock of people who are turning to trusted media. Our sales are up huge in the supermarkets, and we're also getting spikes across the network in terms of the digital traffic, as you would expect during this time. So I'm heartened to see that Australians, when they're faced with such an unprecedented situation, really do know where to turn, and that is to the trusted news sources, where the information that you're getting, you can actually believe and make informed decisions, rather than through social media, which you have to always question.
Absolutely. Just finally, I mean, News Corp has had to make adaptations, changes to the way that, we're operating in general, and many other companies, of course, across the country. Do you have any advice for people who are working from home and running a business or, leading a team? And what would be your advice to people during this time?
Look, the number one piece of advice that I've got after this week's experience is really just to communicate more than you would normally. Look, it can be a bit annoying sitting on those Google Hangouts that ping you every 5 seconds, but it's really important to stay in contact with each other. You can't underestimate this, that social part of being in the same office together, and also just the overheard conversations in terms of achieving what you're setting out to achieve each day. So communicate, and in terms of being a leader, I think that's even more important than ever. You're leading people in an uncertain time that are working in an unfamiliar environment, and constantly making sure that you're checking in on them, not in a way to make sure that they're doing their work, but checking in on just their welfare and making sure that they're okay, and making them feel connected is absolutely my number one tip.
Some great advice there, and our viewers can pick up a copy of the Courier-Mail to find out all the latest on the coronavirus pandemic. Courier-Mail Editor Chris Jones, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Danica.